Hello and congratulations. You've now gotten your book and you've gotten your bonuses, so you are well on your way. Now, I want to give you this training because I think it'll help fast track you, and the information in the book will integrate faster with this training. Now, I'm going to tell you first about my story, and then I'm going to delve into some of the most important parts of the book for you. I grew up as a fat girl, I like to say, and although I wasn't always fat, because sometimes I just had fat head, and I talk about that in the book. The fact is that emotional eaters often think they're fat when they're not, which was the case for me. I look back at photos and sometimes I was perfectly fine and I didn't realize it because I thought I was fat. But fathead works the other way as well, where sometimes we're denying the fact that we're packing on pounds and we think we're fine until we look at a photo and we're like, oh my God. So basically, I had fathead and my weight fluctuated all the time. I was a yo-yo dieter and my weight would go up and down 20, 30 pounds incessantly. But I was obsessed with food. I really loved food. I loved to eat. I loved to cook. I loved to serve food. I love to go out to restaurants, everything. And it was really an obsession. And it was the highlight of my life. I mean, I love to eat, but of course I put on pounds really easily. And so I didn't love that part. So I struggled with my weight and I felt ashamed of being fat. I felt ashamed of my legs chafing as I ran during sports practice. I felt horrible in a bathing suit and tried to avoid it at all costs. And then I started doing different kinds of diets, which never worked for me. I'd always bust out and end up eating, or I'd start an exercise program and not finish it. I sometimes just wished I would get some kind of disease where I'd automatically lose weight. I mean, how crazy is that? So I was really in this desperate place where I hated my weight, but I loved to eat, and I didn't know how to stop overeating. And seriously, any diet I went on, I mean, it wasn't really a diet because I was cheating all over the place, expecting to lose weight. So that's what happened for me. And I finally found a solution close to 30 years ago, and it was life transforming for me. I met a man named Roy Nelson, who is my husband today, but at the time he was a mentor to me, and he helped me completely transform my life. And so everything I share with Heal Your Hunger in this book is an amass of 30 years of experience with not only overcoming my own eating disorder, which I also call food addiction and emotional eating. I sort of lump them all together, but I not only overcame that by the grace of God, but I also have been privileged to help Roy and be by his side for 30 years as we've helped other people overcome their disordered eating. So it's been an amazing experience for me. I'm so grateful and I've learned so much. My husband is a spiritual healer and he has taught me so much, and the people we've helped have taught us so much about this condition and how to really overcome it. So I put every bit of wisdom into this book and to really show you what it takes to heal your hunger and end emotional eating now. So I'm excited about the book, and I'm also excited because there's so many things in here that are so different than what you've read about and heard about regarding weight loss and regarding eating issues, because so much of the information out there doesn't get to the heart of the problem. And I want to talk about some of those things. You know, if you've been on this path for a little while and it's not your first rodeo, you've tried a lot of things. I mean, you have dieted, of course, and you know how well that works. 98% of all diets fail. You've tried other things, like perhaps you did some pills and potions along the way, some different concoctions or supplements that you thought would burn your fat off your thighs or wouldn't make you crave or whatever it is. But you know, those don't work as well. At least not long term. You might have gone to a 12-step program. That was my story. I started out in 12-step programs, and while I got a lot of really powerful information there, it didn't stop my eating because I still had cravings and I still ended up busting out. Just like I'd bust out with my diets prior to going to 12-step programs, I would bust out of my food plan while I was in a 12-step program. So I felt very discouraged, especially when they tell you it's the last house on the block. And it wasn't working for me. And I tried it for years. Therapy, I went to therapy. I tried eating disorders therapy, and I was rigorous about it. I went twice a week. And after a year, nothing changed with my eating. I talked about a lot of things, but it was all up here. It was at the head level, not at the heart level. And there's a big difference because the problems I had centered in my heart. They weren't just cognitive. And in order to really dig into that heart level, I needed more than just therapy. Therapy didn't do the job for me. Other things that people try, more severe things like surgery and liposuction, more physical and invasive things. We have had people come to us for years who have already been through that, and they've actually gone through weight loss surgery or lap band surgery, and they've busted right out of it. They busted out the staples or the band because they're binging. They're still overeating. And others who perhaps did lose weight, most people do end up putting on at least some of the weight after they've lost. But even those who do lose weight, they still have cravings, and they end up resorting to other things like alcohol or drugs or pills because they still need that fix. They've still got those cravings, that gnawing inside that needs an answer. And so all these different things that so many of us have tried, they fail us. And they fail us, I believe, for one primary reason. And that's because as emotional eaters, we need to get down to the underlying causes. And all these things are band-aids, and they don't work, and they don't address the underlying causes. And so that is why Heal Your Hunger exists, because without going deeper and without really getting to the root of the problem, you will always resort back to overeating. That's my experience, and that's the experience of hundreds, if not thousands, of other emotional eaters. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in fact, because we can't slap a Band-Aid on this problem. My food cravings came from such a deep place, and I want to share with you why we eat and why we have those cravings. You see, Roy and I, in our work, have really identified 3 primary drivers of food addiction, and all addictions, in fact. And I call it the PEP formula, okay? P stands for painkiller. So I used food because I had pain. I had pain underneath the surface. I was a happy-go-lucky girl, you can bet. I have a big personality, and I was doing great things in the world, but underneath where I lived, I had this pain inside that just really haunted me. So I used food to anesthetize that pain. I also used food as a form of escape. At the end of the day, I'd get my brownies, my ice cream, my popcorn, and I'd sit in front of the television and I'd watch TV, and I'd be like, go away, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to deal with the world anymore. It's too much. It's too complicated. There's too many uncomfortable feelings. Just leave me alone. I want to escape. And so food is great for that, isn't it? It just makes the whole pile of worries go away, temporarily, of course. And the third thing is the last P is for punishment. And I use food as a form of punishment. And it doesn't always seem like it's a punishment. After all, I'm rewarding myself with my favorite foods. But the truth is, after I wake up the next day after a binge and I've got, stains on my shirt and I feel bloated and fat and I don't want to go out with friends and I cancel appointments and I don't want to be seen, that's punishment. That is a form of punishment. It's destructive eating. I am punishing myself. And I believe we do this because we carry around a lot of guilt. Emotional eaters are very guilt prone, right? We feel bad about everything. And so it's really important that we address that guilt. So the first thing, we use food as a painkiller to kill pain. We use food as an escape to run away from fear, because emotional eaters are very fearful. We're very fearful people. And also to really deal with the guilt, okay? We want to punish ourselves for the guilt. So we have to get rid of the pain, the fear, and the guilt if we expect to have lasting success with overcoming emotional eating. So I want to talk to you about something in the book that you're not going to read anywhere else. And that's the anatomy of the emotional eater. Did you know that there's actually a profile, a personality profile for emotional eaters? This is something I've identified in my 30 years of experience and research. It's really important to know that in order to really heal your hunger, you have to dig into what these personality traits are. It's not enough to just take food away from your diet. I mean, that's going to leave you hungry and craving for the foods you shouldn't be eating. And the reason why is because these personality traits inside of you, the traits from which you operate in your everyday life, they are setting you up for cravings, okay? So you have to identify what these traits are. You have to know what the personality profile of an emotional eater is. Otherwise, you're not dealing with the full set of information. I mean, you need to know. You need to know what it is about you that's actually causing your cravings. Things like being a people pleaser. I don't know anybody who's better at being a people pleaser than me, of course, but all emotional eaters, it's a terrible trait that we carry and that drives our lives and drives our emotions. Because guess what? When we want to please other people to a fault, okay, and we do too much and we overextend and we hurt ourselves and we get stressed out and we get tired, all because we want to please, not because we care so much about the other person, but more because we want the validation, we want the kudos. We want people to say, oh, look at Tricia, she's so good. Oh, please tell me more. So it's really important to realize that when we do that, when we overextend ourselves and stress ourselves out looking for that validation, we're ending up at the end of the day resentful, angry, in self-pity, and lonely, right? It's a lonely walk doing everything for everybody, being all things to all people. And at the end of the day, we're opening up the refrigerator and we're consoling ourselves because after all, nobody appreciates us like we expected them to, right? They're never pleased like we want them to be. So that's just one of many traits. I actually list 24 of them in the book. And there's other traits as well, like we're extra sensitive. I mean, emotional eaters are very sensitive people, right? I mean, people often say to us, we wear our heart on our sleeves, or don't take things so seriously, or, get over it. I mean, we're always hearing that because we are sensitive. And we also have racing minds. So not only are we sensitive and we get our feelings hurt easily, but then we obsess about it and think, what did he mean by that? Or I wonder what she meant when she said that. Or why did he look at me that way? So we think and we think and we overthink. That's the racing mind of the emotional eater. So with these kinds of traits, we drive ourselves crazy. I mean, we're constantly thinking too much, doing too much, and then eating too much. And so these traits, you have to be armed with knowledge about what these traits are and which ones you have and to what degree so that you can begin to overcome them so they don't drive you to eat. Super important. Now I want to talk about the 7 steps to end emotional eating now because these are so vital. And this is really based on 30 years of experience, both with myself and my husband, who's a spiritual healer. And I mean, he's been walking free for 40 years, over 40 years in a thin body, and he was morbidly obese. So together we have quite a bit of research and quite a bit of knowledge of what it takes to overcome emotional eating. Now, the first thing that is vital, and you cannot miss this step, and if you do, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And that's to create connection and community because we must connect. We are heart-centered people. Emotional eaters are softies, okay? We're so soft. Sure, we may have a hard shell on the outside. We may be kind of brassy or bitchy or kind of hard and don't mess with me. But it's a facade. I mean, let's face it, we get hurt so easily. I mean, we're tender at heart and more so than other people. And I believe this is because it's tough being an emotional eater. I mean, it's tough being, especially if you've been obese, it's tough. I mean, it's tough being in a fat body and being ridiculed or sneered at or demeaned just because, you know, we're fat. And I've been there and it's awful. It's absolutely awful. And what that does to us is not only, I mean, demoralizing and demeaning and so hurtful, but there's a hidden gem. And the gem is that we become extremely compassionate people. And this is a trait also in the anatomy of the emotional eater, but we're very soft and then we become very compassionate for other people's pain. And so, you know, that's the silver lining of being sensitive and, you know, being a freak essentially when we get so fat that other people discriminate against us. It hurts like hell, but I'll tell you, it makes us softer, kinder, more compassionate people because we know what it's like to be a victim of that. And so we can turn that around. We can take, you know, those awful experiences and turn them into great assets because we can become so compassionate for other people and we can really help other people on account of it. But first, we have to connect, okay? And a lot of the times when we get hurt long enough, we decide, screw it, I'm not going to open myself up anymore. And this may have happened in an early age. At an early age, we may have been hurt by our parents or by a priest or our friends. Again, if we have a weight problem, it's going to hurt a lot, the things that they say. So whenever we got hurt enough, where we made the decision that I'm not going to be hurt any longer, what happens is we shut down and we close our hearts and we don't want to let people in. And so we walk around with a shell around our hearts and we're brash and we're brazen. And again, we may be kind and loving because that's part of our nature. We want to be liked. But at the same time, we're closed and our heart is shut down. And this is certainly the case with me. As kind and loving and generous I was to other people, as fun-loving as I was, you could not penetrate my heart at a certain level because I got hurt. You know, I had sexual abuse as a child. And I think at that age, I decided I'm not letting anybody in. I'm never going to let somebody in enough that they could hurt me in this way. And I have to tell you that it's a bad decision. It's good. It's, you know, for me, it probably saved me from a lot of additional pain. But as an adult, I needed to dismantle that wall around my heart. And the Heal Your Hunger program is all about that. So connection and community is vital to overcoming emotional eating. And connecting in a community is especially vital because we want to connect at the heart level. We want to have people we're safe to speak freely with. We want to feel like we can actually express ourselves honestly. And the best people to do that with are other emotional eaters who are on a healing path. So important. You cannot do this alone. You cannot do it in a vacuum. So remember, very, very important to have connection and community with other emotional eaters. And I'll show you how to do that because I've developed a way for people to have community that's supportive and can help you on this amazing healing path. So that's the first step, super important. The second step is centeredness, okay? And getting centered and staying centered, although that's not always achievable, but striving for centeredness is so important. After all, you know, we can be stress junkies, right? We can create a lot of chaos in our lives when we're overdoing. We're running here and there and everywhere. We're missing appointments. We're committing to too much. People are disappointed because we can't always come through because you can't physically be there all the time to all the places we've said we would be. And so there's a lot of chaos in our lives, or perhaps we have 5 dogs and 4 cats. We're just good at like taking on too much, taking on too many dependents, and then just being in chaos on account of it. Well, guess what? When you live in chaos, you have to overeat. It's just the way it is. You've got to overeat, and because if you're an emotional eater, so we reach for food to help us with the stress, but it's the stress we caused, okay, and created. So it's really, and of course there's stress that happens that isn't our fault, but it's really important to know that regardless, we have to find a way to get centered and get still and quiet. And so the centeredness piece of the 7 steps is vital, and it's a big part of my life. I have to create a whole self-care plan that I practice every morning, like meditation and prayer and reading inspirational literature. Other things like walking. Every day I walk and I pray while I walk. Love the connection I get with my divine spirit that way. Other things that I need to do is write. Writing is so helpful. Talking, expressing myself again in that connection process. So these are all things that are necessary for ending emotional eating, because garbage in, garbage out, right? Okay, if we're taking on stress, we've got to get it out. We cannot take it on and be burdened with the stress of life without reaching for cookies and cake and ice cream, okay? Nibbly things. The reason why we're eating, the reason why we're craving is because we're burdened. We've got too much that we've taken on. We're stressed out, and we don't have that place of calm and still to resort to empower us and to support us. And so creating that centeredness plan is really important. And I can't live without it. Every single day I'm getting centered first, because if I start whirling, with the stress of the day, and I haven't found my center, if I haven't gone within to find that beautiful, wonderful center inside, I'm going to run with every bit of stress that's happening. Any little distraction, it's like my mind is going there, but I have to get still and quiet first. So that's so important. The next thing is clean eating. Oh my goodness. Now, the Heal Your Hunger book and program isn't about telling you what to eat, because I think by now you probably have an idea of what to eat and what not to eat. And I think probably your problem is you can't follow through, right? That was the case for me. I tried food plans several times and I couldn't follow through again because I had the emotional baggage and I was stressed out and I had all these other underlying causes. So really important to know that just eating right is impossible for an emotional eater, okay? So let's get that off the table. I'm not going to tell you to eat right because I know you can't. I know you can't if you don't do the other steps. However, there is a place and a time for clean eating. And so I'm going to give you guidelines on how to do that. And my favorite suggestion is something called 3-meal magic. Now, 3-meal magic is a beautiful, wonderful, magical way of eating that's so simple and so just straightforward, and there's no mumbo jumbo about it. It's basically eating 3 meals a day with nothing in between and no snacking. And of course you can drink water or flavored drinks, sugar-free drinks or whatever, but really important that you have structure around your day and around your meals. Because let's face it, if we're nibbling all day long, it's not only about, the fact that we'll never lose weight, because I'm not really focused on the weight. I'm focused on helping you address emotional eating. So if you're nibbling all day long, from my perspective, you're never feeling your emotions. You're never able to identify why it is you eat in the first place. If you're eating all the time, you won't know why you're eating because you're dead. You're anesthetized. You're in that coma state. I've been there. I know. So clean eating and 3-meal magic is about setting you up for success and helping you with a structure of eating that's not, regimented to the point where you feel bad if you don't do it exactly. But it's really about a structure of eating that helps you have peace and still and quiet between your meals so you can start getting in touch, so you know what it is that's going on inside of you. Because we got to find out. If we're going to end emotional eating, we have to know what our emotions are so that we can face them and address them and heal them. So that's all that's about. But I'll tell you, because we have such bad habits, because we've kind of gone off the rails with our eating and are, really doing crazy things around food and all the machinations of trying to not eat and then overeating and then hiding and sneaking and, justifying and rationalizing, it gets crazy. So this chapter in the book is all about all the different tips and tools that I can give you for sane eating, for helping the 3-meal magic structure work for you. So many different things. And they're simple things, but we've got to come back. We've got to come back. We've got to put away all the crazy different things that we've done with food and come back to sane eating and clean eating. So that's what that's about. The next thing that's really important for us is communication. And I have to tell you, oh my goodness, wow, emotional eaters, remember what I said about people pleasing? We're huge people pleasers, and we're also really good at stuffing our feelings and never saying what we really mean to say, right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Every emotional eater is afraid to say how they really feel. We judge our feelings as not important, not good enough. We're constantly saying, oh, I'm not as good as other people. I'm not as smart as other people. Wah, wah, wah. We are so judgmental of ourselves. It's crazy making. So what we do is we shut up, right? We shut up, we observe, we go along with other people's viewpoints. We don't say no when we need to say no. We say yes when we really need to say no. And so it's really important to start learning how to speak up and speak out. And I always say it or stuff it. I mean, that's the bottom line. Say it or stuff it. Share it or wear it, okay? And so it's important that I share with you exactly how to do that, because knowing you should speak up is not enough. I wanted to give you exact step-by-step suggestions on how to speak up, because it is not easy for people like us. And I know that this is something I've struggled with my entire life, and I'm still working on it. I've come a long ways, but I'm constantly learning to use my voice and speak up. And I always like to say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And so much of the time, we do say it mean. When we bottle up our emotions, over time, we end up blowing, So we not only say nothing and we're kind of mousy, but then when we've had enough, oh, Nelly, watch out. Katie, bar the door. Here we come. And so there's a way to balance out, how you feel and expressing it in a kind and loving way so that you get your point across, so that you are unburdened from, you're not stuffing it and you're basically getting off your chest, but you're doing it in a very loving way so that you're not hurting other people in the process, because, of course, we don't want to do that. So you'll love the 10 secrets to expressing yourself with confidence. And there's actually a cheat sheet that came with your bonuses for that. So the next thing is consciousness. And, this seems like an abstract concept, but it was so vital that I put this in the book as one of the 7 steps. I could not get around it. And I tried. I have to tell you, I thought, it's kind of, woo-woo sounding or whatever. But boy, oh boy, it is so central to the emotional eater's experience, both lack of consciousness and then to the emotional eater's healing experience regarding strength of consciousness and growth of consciousness, that it had to be in the book. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what I mean by consciousness. When we're in the food, as an example, have you ever noticed how dark things are? I mean, when we're obsessing about food, when we cannot stop, when we're stopping at the 7-Eleven on the way home, when we don't want to, when we're hiding our wrappers, when we're putting a bowl, a bowl that's dirty under our bed because we don't want somebody to see that we just ate. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that we do. And so our consciousness gets very dark. When we're enslaved to food, it's a horrible experience, and it makes us feel so ashamed of ourselves. And so we get really dark and really negative, okay? You know what I'm talking about. It's a horrible experience. And so the darker we get, the more negative our own actions are. I mean, it feeds on itself, and it's progressive. It gets progressively worse. The worse we feel about ourselves for our binging and our food behaviors, the more negative things we do, the more bitchy we are, the more mean we are, the more grumpy we are, the more we hibernate, the more we don't want to take our kids out for a walk or to the playground. Oh my goodness, there's so many negative things that happen when we're in that dark frame of mind, that dark consciousness, I like to call it. And so it's really important to see that and see how that affects how we eat and just how it exacerbates the problem. Well, alternatively or conversely, when we start improving our consciousness, when we start thinking positive thoughts, when we start dwelling on a lot happier things than how big our thighs are or how much we hate a certain person, things get better for us, and the food will follow, okay? The food follows our consciousness. When we're negative, when we're resentful, when we're in self-pity, when we feel like everybody's done us wrong, the food follows that consciousness. When we start taking responsibility for ourselves and our problems, when we start seeing the bright side of things, when we start dwelling not on our problems but on the solutions, our food will follow that as well. So consciousness is so important. And also remember, I talked about fathead. That is a form of consciousness as well. And in order to lose weight and keep it off, in order to really have the body that we want to have, we have to change our thinking about how we look. And I'm not talking about how we look in a certain dress or whatever like that. I mean that fathead I talked about, because when you grow up with a weight problem, or whenever you gain weight and you're stuck in that pattern, you tend to see yourself in that way. Whereas you won't be able to keep the weight off unless you get rid of that fat head, that idea of who you are as a fat person, because you get stuck in that and your cells get stuck in that. And so it's really important that we change, how we perceive ourselves, and that deep-rooted consciousness around our weight, our body consciousness is what I call it. So important. And, we can look in the mirror and say, oh, I look great, but we don't really believe it. If you've had a weight problem, you're not going to see it. Other people will tell you, look great, you've lost weight. And we're going to say, really? Because we don't see it. We are stuck in that vision of who we used to be as a fat person. So body consciousness is so important. So these are just a few ways that how we think about the world, how we think, on a daily basis, and how we think about our bodies, how that affects the weight that we are and our relationship with food and emotional eating. Now, I want to talk about causes, okay? And this is the second to last step in the 7 steps to end emotional eating now. And it's probably the second to last because we can't dive in there right away, okay? We have to set up our centeredness tools. We have to know more about how to communicate with people. I mean, we need to get our grounding first. It's really important. We need a clean eating plan. So all these things get laid out first, and then we deal with the causes. And what I have is an acronym for doing so called SOURCE, okay? And SOURCE stands for spiritual void, old wounds, untrue beliefs, resentment, compromise, and ego. Okay, these are some heavier topics, But we have to go there, and you will want to go there once you have your ground, your feet under you. When you've got a solid foundation, then we can dig into these causes in the source work. So super important to do. I don't recommend doing this alone. You need a community. You need people who are doing this with you. You can hold hands, and we can all do this together. Super important, because after all, let's face it, we haven't dealt with the causes, and we overate instead for a reason, because we were afraid. We didn't want to go there. We don't want to look at that stuff. Forget it. Pass me another chocolate bar. But together we can do it. And I'm not talking about deep, crazy work that you're wailing and sobbing. The way I lay it out is very understandable and relatable. And it's something, again, when you've got other people you're locking arms with, you can do. But the impact of this source work is phenomenal. I mean, this is it, guys. This is the real stuff. This is what makes all the difference in the world. This is why 98% of all diets fail. People aren't doing this work. They aren't getting in there to the root causes. They're overlooking them. They don't want to deal with them. Well, guess what? They're spending decades dealing with diets and food plans and crazy exercise programs simply because they don't do the source work. So we do it. We do it and we get into it and it works. And you'll see, you'll love it. The last step is courage. And while that may seem like a strange step, it makes all the other steps work, because I have to shine the light on the fact that all of these steps, all of the work that I'm talking about doing, that we do together, I'll tell you, it is all bound together by courage. And we need courage in order to take these steps. And so I really wanted to make that the last step in the process, because at every turn, you'll have a choice between fear and courage. And we have to choose courage. And the difference will be everything to us. Okay, the difference between success with food or, blowing it again. And so really important that we find within us, find that source of courage that we need to do the things we're afraid to do. And let's face it. The difference between people who succeed and those who don't succeed, is the people who succeed are willing to do things that people who don't succeed aren't willing to do. And it's not that those people who did it were courageous. No, they were probably terrified to do it too. But they did it anyway. They found those resources of courage within themselves. Even if it was just a little bit, courage grows on itself. You exercise a little bit of courage, you walk through a little bit of fear, and you sit up a little taller. You walk through a little bit more fear, and you get stronger, and you sit up even taller. And then what happens is your mind shift changes, where you believe you actually can do something because you've done it. There's so many things in my life I was sure I couldn't do. I was the scaredest person in the world. I was terrified to do everything. Everything scared me. Everything. I can't think of anything that didn't scare me. And I'm still scared today. There's things that I think there's no way I could do it. But I take one, step, and then I take the next step. And before you know it, I'm doing something I didn't think I could do. And then it's like, what's next? Let's move on to the next thing, because I just realized I could do it because I did it. So that's what I want to support you in doing as well. Now, the final chapter in the book is called Your Heal Your Hunger Blueprint. And this is a checklist that you can refer to help you see all the steps that you can take. And so you can choose and list, the things that you want to start with first. But I want to tell you that if you're really serious about ending emotional eating, if you're really ready to do this thing and to get started, I've created a companion course to the book called 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. And I created this course because I know there's people out there like me who want to have freedom and want to be free now. And so I love those kinds of people because they're ready to go. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work and really start making changes. And especially if they've been doing things that don't work for so long. If you've been barking up the wrong tree for so long, guess what? I get it, and it's time to do something different. It's time to stop doing the kinds of things you've done before that all deal with the outside surface or physical level and start delving into the more emotional level, okay? Because this stuff, I'll tell you, it is everything. It will make all the difference in the world. I'm proof of it. I was 50 pounds overweight. I could not lose weight for the life of me. I was stuck and trapped in a fat body. But when I was shown these steps and I took these steps, my entire relationship with food changed, my relationship with other people changed, my self-confidence, my self-esteem, my sense of joy in life. I mean, I am a happy person. Like, I wake up excited about the day, excited to get started and to see what I can do to make a difference. That is not who I was back in the day. So I want you to have that experience. I've created this companion course. I've actually made it very affordable, so you can do it. Even have a payment plan. But I want you to really check this out. You can do so in the link below. It may not be for you. And I'll tell you it's not for everybody. And I talk about it. If you click that link, you'll see who it's not for. Because I don't want anybody who's not right for this, because I want people who really want to rock and roll, start making a difference in their lives and start living differently and become the bright light that we were all meant to be. So check it out. I really hope that you'll join me, be a part of the Heal Your Hunger community, and really begin, fast tracking your success. And I'm just really grateful to you. I'm grateful that you bought the book. I'm grateful that you came with me this far and you're here right now. Thank you very much for that. But I hope you'll go further with me, because I'd love to have you on this path with me, because we can do together what none of us is ever going to do, trying to figure it out on our own. I mean, that's never going to work. So join me. Let's do this. And thank you. I appreciate you.